Now, there is a book that came out about 15 years ago by a Mayan elder called Barbara Hand Clow. And the Mayans were the ones that were, well, one of the indigenous cultures that prophesied the consciousness shift of 2012 at the end of their calendar. The Native Americans also have prophecies about 2012, and those that are attuning to their own intuition are channeling information about 2012, which is a growing number of us. So the Mayan elder Barbara Hand Clow said there were 3 things we need to do to prepare for this consciousness shift in 2012. The first was for women to start gathering again at new moon. And the reason for this is that it is not called our moon time for nothing. When we are menstruating, we download insights intuitively from Luna, from Grandmother Moon, every single month. And we bring those down into our womb space, into our holy grail. Now, when, as the Christ said, 3 or more are gathered in my name, when we gather together, our extra senses, our clear seeing, our clairvoyance, our clear hearing, our clairaudience, our clear sensing, our clairsentience, and our intuition, our inner knowing, are all amplified, both at dark moon and when we bleed. When we come together, they're amplified even more. So by just the simple act of coming together with the intention of gaining insight and speaking the hunches, speaking the perceptions that we see by reading what's playing out on the global stage symbolically, the more we understand about myths and archetypes, the more we can learn to read the signs and understand the wisdom that's being presented through an external show, whether it's, you know, what the celebrities and footballers are doing, or whether it's what's playing out politically. We can read this as what's also happening in the microcosm within us in order to then heal it. So by gathering together at this time and speaking our insights and our intuitions, we get to soundboard and our synapses work off each other, and we download even more understanding. And that's why the Moon Lodge was a place where it was considered the most sacred place in the tribe, because this is where the women in their most psychic, still, humble, open vessel state would bring through insights for themselves and for the greater community. And it is also why when a woman ceased menstruating, she was honoured as a wise elder for having done that descent and that cycle for so many moons, and honoured for her service to the community. And then, of course, the women would go to the Grandmother Lodge or the Black Lodge, where they were really revered as keepers of the wisdom, as they then prepared for their conscious death and rebirth into the next realm. Now, in our culture, without rites of passage and without a tradition such as the Moon Lodge, we don't understand the gifts of aging. And so we lived in an ego-based, youth worshipping culture where the ego is worshipped in terms of, what looks good rather than, who you are and your character, your inner self. So as we approach, almost the annihilation of us as a species because of this unchecked ego-based consciousness, we need to anchor a huge amount of wisdom on the planet to literally turn the ship around. And so Nostradamus said that at this time in our consciousness, the feminine would rise up and transform society as we know it. Now, this is not an army of Amazon women. this is the feminine within all peoples, masculine or men and women. And so I see this as the third wave of the women's movement. First we had the suffragettes, then we had the feminists, and now we have what I see as the third wave, which is not a political movement. It is not from the head, and it is not angry, and it's not trying to claim external power, but rather this is a healing movement, and this is about the internal empowerment of the feminine, by each person taking responsibility for healing the feminine within themselves. And we do that first and foremost by tuning with the lunar cycle and understanding how it affects us. Because the word disaster, disaster, means to go against the stars. If we ignore the orchestra of huge transits and motions and cycles of the heavenly bodies, of sun, of moon, of planets, we create a nightmare, disaster. Whereas if we then attune ourselves to the greater cycles, we come back into attunement with highest wisdom and our own innate intelligence, rather than externalizing it and looking to be led by as sheep.